Part 6 of the Military Journals of Two Private Soldiers, 1758-1775. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by FNH. The Military Journals of Two Private Soldiers, 1758-1775, by Abraham Tomlinson. Part 6. Monday, 31st. 9 of our New England men were put under guard for making false alarm about the batteaux coming down upon us, and also one regular that Rogers took that deserted last year to the French from us. Tuesday, August 1st. There was about 700 men went down to the halfway brook to be stationed there, and 8 of our company and Captain Holmes came back. Wednesday, 2. Today General Limon, in of a scout, and the men that went with him, and Rogers and Putnam, went out of a scout, with 14 or 1500 for 10 days. Rogers says that on his return from his attempt to intercept the marauding party, he was met by an express with orders to march towards the head of Lake Champlain, at the south and east bays, to prevent the French marching upon Fort Edward. There he was joined by Major Putnam and Captain Dayel, or DL. This day Craft died, and was buried. Stephen Lyon came of scout. Thursday, 3rd. 2 of our men went out a-fishing for 2 days, but had poor luck. Friday, 4th. We had our orders to march to Fort Edward, and I washed up my clothes. Saturday, 5th. This morning about half our regiment marched forward to build breastworks along upon the road in some bad places. We arrived at Fort Edward at 9 o'clock, and we built 2 breastworks. Sunday, 6th. We drawed 3 days' provision, and this afternoon the rest of our regiment came down, and the teams that went up the day before. We received our packet of letters from home. Monday, 7th. Captain and all that were able to go were ordered to guard down to Fort Miller and back again. Tuesday, 8th. In the morning we were drawed out for work, and worked the forenoon, and then we were ordered to fix every man in the regiments to make ready, to go out to help Major Putnam, and we met them a-coming in from sundown, and we helped them along as far as we could, and that night, and lay out that night, and 3 of the wounded men died there, and Ben Denny for one. A severe engagement took place on Clear River, the west branch of Wood Creek, about a mile northwest from Fort Anne village, then the site of a picketed blockhouse called Fort Anne, between a party of Rangers and Provincials under Rogers, Putnam, and Captain Dalyell, or DL, and about an equal number of French and Indians under Molang, a famous partisan leader. The English troops were marching when attacked. Putnam was in front, with the Provincials, Rogers was in the rear with his Rangers, and DL was in the centre with the regulars. Molang attacked them in front, and a powerful Indian rushed forward and made Putnam a prisoner. The Provincials were thrown into great confusion, but were rallied by Lieutenant Durkee, who was one of the victims of the Wyoming massacre 20 years afterward. DL, with Gage's light infantry, behaved very gallantly, and the Rangers finally put the enemy to flight. The latter lost about 200 men. Colonel Prevost, then in command at Fort Edward, sent out 300 men with refreshments for the party, and all arrived at Fort Edward on the 9th. This was the relief party mentioned in the text, under date of the 8th. Wednesday, 9th. We got in about 8 o'clock, and buried the dead, and the wounded were dressed and carried over on the island. This is an island in the Hudson, opposite Fort Edward, and known as Rogers Island. Powers came up with a load of sutlers, stores, and treated us well. Thursday, 10th. I was called out to work upon the blockhouse. This day our post went of home with our letters. Friday, 11th. We went up to guard teams to Halfway Brook, and to build a breastwork, 36 ox teams and 6 wagons. Saturday, 12th. Colonel Fitch had a letter from Major Putnam at Ticonderoga. He is taken prisoner. The Indian who seized Putnam tied him to a tree, and for a time he was exposed to the crossfire of the combatants. His garments were riddled by bullets, but, strange to say, not one touched his person. He was carried away in the retreat, his wrists tightly bound with cords. The Indians rejoiced over the capture of their great enemy, and he was doomed to the torture. In the deep forest he was stripped naked, bound to a sapling, Wood was piled high around him, the death songs of the savages were chanted, and the torch was applied. Just then a heavy shower of rain almost extinguished the flames. They were again bursting forth with fiercer intensity, when a French officer, informed of what was going on, darted through the crowd of yelling savages, and released the prisoner. He was delivered to Montcalm at Ticonderoga, then sent to Montreal, and, after being treated kindly, was exchanged for a prisoner taken by Colonel Bradstreet at Frontenac. Sunday 13th. Day the chief of our men upon duty, and the rest went to meeting the afternoon. The text was in the 2nd of Timothy, and 1st chapter, and 10th verse. Monday 14th. I had nothing to do. I wrote a letter to John. Tuesday 15. I was upon picket guard, and wet and stormy it was. One of the regulars whipped for sleeping upon guard. Wednesday 16th. The Rangers discovered a scout of French, and come in to Fort Edward, and all that were able were ready at a minute's warning. Today I sent a letter to John Lyon. Thursday 17th. W. P. 31 stripes still, and nothing to do the leave. T.S. fixed up their tents. Friday 18th. 6 of our men were ordered to go over to work upon the blockhouse over the river. I was really tired at night. Saturday 19th. I washed my clothes. Col Fitch at Salatogue. Sunday 20th. We were almost all out upon duty to work at the highways, and in the afternoon a very hard shower, which sot our tents all afloat. Monday 21st. I went down to Fort Misery. Fort Misery was a breastwork at the mouth of Moses Kill, or Creek, a short distance from Fort Miller, on the east side of the Hudson. And I heard of John Day's death at Salatogue. This day Morris came up, and we lived well. Tuesday 22nd. I went up the river to look for a horse. Stephen and I was called upon picket guard. Wednesday 23rd. I went out to look oxen, and was treated well. One man's gun went off, and cut off his finger. We drove out the 2 men out of the blockhouse, kept the great cattle. Thursday 24th. I was called out to guard up teams, and to work on the road, and had gill of rum for it. Zachariah Catlin died at Fort Edward. Friday 25th. I was called upon the quarter guard, and we heard the great guns that were fired at the lake, at Fort George, at the head of Lake George. They shot at a mark, and our provincials beat them, and it made them very mad. Saturday 26th. David Lyon and Barnes sought out to Albany sick this day. They held a regimental court-martial upon 3 deserters of Captain Mather's company. One William Kennedy and William Clearmont were judged to have 1,000 lashes, and today received 250 stripes apiece. T'other was forgiven. Sunday 27th. I was out upon the works at the great blockhouse. We were out of provision. We drawed for 7 days, but 4 gone, so the regulars shot pigeons, and our men did so too. End of Part 6. Recording by FNH. Please visit www.bookranger.co.uk.